M&T Bank presents Montgomery Community Media's Small Business Network. SBN is also sponsored by Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation and Leadership Montgomery.
Hello and welcome to Montgomery Community Media's Small Business Network at Home Edition. I'm your host, Kelly Leonard. Thank you for tuning in. Joining me online to discuss Montgomery County's Economic Development Plan are Councilmembers Andrew Friedson and Nancy Navarro, representing District 1 and District 4 respectfully. Welcome, council members.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. Thank you so much for your time. And I know we have just a wee bit of it before you all hop into a council meeting. So we are going to jump right into our conversation. And actually, I want to start with you, Andrew. This past year has presented unprecedented challenges to our county's small business community. And I know you've been intimately involved in crafting relief programs that are aimed at the small business sector. Can you share some of those programs and discuss the impact that you think they've had?
Yeah, I'm really proud of how the council in particular and county government has stepped up to help businesses that are struggling just to be able to keep their lights on in an unprecedented time. It started over a year ago, all the way back in March. At the very outset of the crisis, the council crafted a $37.5 million relief package. It was one of the largest, one of the first of any local government in the region and in the country. And we built from there. And I'm really proud of the fact that that initial package and the packages that follow were council efforts. They weren't introduced by individual council members, which really reflected the fact that we were unified to support businesses. And we have heard from countless local businesses that I have met with and talked to that they would not be here. They would not be able to keep their folks employed. They would not be able to stay in business and keep their lights on, but for these grants. And the federal government stepped in, but I referred to it as the ambulance versus the hospital. And the county government has to be the ambulance. We can move faster. We know who these businesses are and how to reach them. We have one of the most diverse groups of businesses anywhere. They're all different, and we needed to craft packages to do it. So we started with the Public Health Emergency Grant Program, which was started with 20 million, and we added from there to help offset losses. We moved to teleworking to help businesses transition to the new normal, so to speak, for those businesses. We had reopening grants to help businesses pay for and offset the costs of reopening, some of the restrictions that were put in place to keep folks safe. And we had a number of others, the Local Production Fund, the 3R initiative, the Restaurant Relief Package. In total, over $60 million in grant programs specifically targeted towards our local employers as part of over $100 million to residents, businesses, and Montgomery County entities that were struggling to get through an unprecedented time. And together, it hasn't been perfect, but we've gotten through this really challenging moment, and we're in a better place today than we've ever been throughout this pandemic, with where vaccines are and where our numbers are and where the virus is. And hopefully our businesses can take it from here and help to generate the quality of life and revenue that we desperately need.
Thank you for that. And so you know, in terms of taking it from here, I love that you all are now effectively passing the baton. And I think that's a great transition or segue to a question that I have for you, Nancy, because I know you have been an integral part in penning the economic development platform. And so I would love for you to share your vision for Montgomery County that is propelled by the economic development platform.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Thank you, MCN, for this amazing program. Let me say that, you know, in 2019, when we were going through a transition, right, we had a new county executive after 12 years, a brand new county council. A lot of conversations occurred during that campaign process. And of course, there was a theme, and that theme really was rooted in, you know, what is the economic development strategy for Montgomery County? What is the narrative, right? I mean, what is it? What is the vision that we are now going to propel? Because we understood that in so many ways it was a new beginning. And through a lot of conversations with folks in the private sector, in the nonprofit sector, community members, et cetera, who kept saying, we just don't seem to have a particular narrative. I convened a robust group of private sector folks, people from the chambers, of course, leaders in that arena, nonprofit organizations, and proposed a particular platform that would be rooted in 4 pillars. But in reality, what was very important was to establish what would be the basis for this, the foundation. And basically it was that we wanted a thriving and diversified economy, innovation, racial equity and social justice, environmental sustainability, and that this platform would have 4 pillars: transportation, business development, workforce development, and housing. In transportation, we would prioritize increasing ridership in non-automobile transportation modes, also enhancing our current road system and activating the county's economic centers. When it came to workforce development, we would focus on developing a workforce in a continuum so that everybody would have an opportunity and so that companies could have easy access to workers that were prepared, a workforce that was prepared in that entire continuum. Also for housing, we would strive to meet the housing targets recommended by the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, with emphasis in construction in our county's activity centers, and of course, business development, right? Investing in opportunities to decrease the cost of doing business in the county, promoting the county's business climate, and also facilitating attraction, retention of strategic industries, but also expanding entrepreneurial programs and services, because we know that this county is home to so many small businesses and that the entrepreneurial spirit is alive and well. And the idea is that all of these pillars interact and that our work on the county council, that the work of every single leadership body here in the county, the executive, the Board of Education, should be rooted in these pillars, because then we can measure ourselves, we can evaluate where we are, and therefore move forward a comprehensive strategy that should place us in the most auspicious position. Now, this was 2019. This is before the pandemic. So now we're having conversations about post-COVID-19 recovery. And I think that this platform serves to propel that post-COVID-19 recovery, that it allows us to then build upon this particular platform. And we have already begun to work towards a lot of these goals, but there's no doubt that post-COVID-19 recovery offers new opportunities to best position ourselves to get Montgomery County going in a much more robust fashion.
Wow, that's a lot. But and I love the concept of the 4 pillars, because you're so right in terms of we can't approach this in a vacuum or in a microcosm. We have to really look at the entire ecosystem. So I appreciate the approach and the lens through which you are addressing our economic development challenges. I know one of the things that stuck out to me that you mentioned was decrease the cost of doing business. And I know that's music to a lot of people who might be hearing this, their ears. Is there one particular way that you can define what that looks like for someone who might be listening that says, okay, what do you mean by that in terms of decreasing the cost of doing business?
Well, one example that I will give, it's a macro example, but it has to do with our growth and infrastructure policy, where we came together and decided to align these policy goals with, for example, building close to activity centers, so building close to metro. And so we incorporated in that long process and that overarching policies a lot of incentives for building in those areas. And that decreases the cost of doing business for these builders, for these developers. But on the other end, what it does is that it provides more housing, which leads to access to more affordable housing, which leads to companies looking at Montgomery County and saying, you know what, this is a great place to do business because our employees will find all kinds of diverse housing in walkable communities. Now, that is a very big overarching overhaul that the council took up, and Councilmember Friedson, of course, being a member of the Economic Development and Planning Committee, was pivotal in that, but the entire council rallied around this new approach. And I think that is very significant. There are other things that we're looking at, for example, fees and things of that nature. But to me, that stands out as a very important example of how we are moving towards reducing the cost of doing business in the county.
Excellent. And I could tell how that example in and of itself touched on all four of the pillars. So
yes, yes.
Now, Andrew, now as a council member, you obviously can't control market forces, but you do play an important role in creating certain conditions for economic prosperity here in the county. Can you share some of the ways that you either personally or as a council member impact our economic climate and interact with small businesses?
Well, it's a great question, Kelly. I like to think of it as we can only nurture nature, and nature is the broader marketplace, and we have to operate in that marketplace. But we can incentivize certain behaviors. We can be a partner with the business community and view the business community as our partner. And I think oftentimes that has not necessarily been the culture in the county, and it needs to be as we move forward, particularly as we look to transition away from 50 years of reliance on the federal government, which really did power our local economy, and really think through an innovation economy. And we're set up perfectly to do this. We have tons of talent coming from all over the world to Montgomery County, perhaps more than any other place on earth. Some of the smartest people anywhere are attracted to come here because of some of the great magnets that we have to bring the world's greatest minds here into Montgomery County. Some of the most entrepreneurial people who are coming from everywhere, homegrown and from elsewhere. And so we're set up to do this, and county government can really step up to help. Kelly, you and I have talked about it before, but I think we need to see ourselves as problem solvers first and legislators second. We need to think about what the problems are and how to solve them, and then decide whether or not it's a policy problem. But Nancy talked quite a bit about some of the things that we can do. And I serve on the Planning, Housing, Economic Development Committee, where so much of the land use decisions and economic development decisions are housed and are made from a policy perspective, and also with Nancy on the Government Operations Fiscal Policy Committee. And if we view government as a partner for businesses and businesses as a partner for government, then both of those committees should be playing a significant role, both looking inward into county government, how easy we make it for businesses to interact with us, and then outward in terms of whether or not we are putting in place the policies to be able to drive the type of economic growth that we want, and frankly, that we need to pay for the services that our residents rely on, the quality of life that we've come to expect here in Montgomery County. And the growth and infrastructure policy was a good example of that. There are many others. We have a major commitment to transit-oriented development, and Nancy and I and Hans Reamer have worked very closely on that, and along with several other colleagues, to try to incentivize high-rise development density at transit, which addresses our housing needs that Nancy worked on at the COG housing targets that they helped develop, and also our environmental imperatives, our economic development goals. All of it is all put together in some of these policy areas that we focus on. I also have the privilege of serving as the council's representative on the Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation Board, and try to bring the council's perspective to that organization, and bring that organization's perspective back to the council, because we need to be working together for that. Nancy and I worked very closely together on the GO committee, for instance, to hold the line on taxes during the pandemic. Some of the cost of doing business isn't just the literal price tag for taxes and fees, it's the changes and how much administration it takes to implement those changes. When we make a change, it may be easy for us to put in place, but it's not necessarily easy for a small business to have a point of sale system that has to be then changed, and to advertise that and explain that to customers. And so, we have to be sensitive to that. We need to be thinking about that. I also led the effort to pass a bill to have economic impact statements for all of our legislation. That means that every policy that we make considers the economic impact, not just to county government, to the revenues that we have, but to the broader economy, because it's the budgets of residents and businesses that create the budget for county government. And we can't talk about the budget for county government unless we're thinking about what impact that has on the budgets of our local businesses and our Montgomery County families. And it's part of a broader strategic framework where we've really tried to change the way that we do business at the county council and the way that we make policy and craft policy, that we institutionalize some of these things. And Nancy's led the effort on racial equity and social justice, making that a part of it. And this is an example of it from an economic development standpoint. Economic development can't be just something that we do. It has to be part of everything that we do, and having it part of every bill is a key part of that. And I'll just close by, on this and say that the pandemic has really helped us. Crisis has breeded creativity. It's also forced us to create more of a culture of yes in county government. Early on, we pushed for the Bethesda Streetery, which was then created all over the county. Wheaton has a streetery. Silver Spring has what they call the street dine. We have them up county. They're throughout the county, even in East County, smaller versions of these in local shopping centers. But this was an example where if you had said several months ago that we would shut down streets, allow for people to have food and drink and tables and chairs in the middle of a county road, nobody would have expected that. Nobody would have said that would be something that Montgomery County would allow to do. And now the region was talking about our streeteries and mimicking it in DC and Northern Virginia and other places. And so, I really think we have something to build from this pandemic, where we didn't continue to do the things that we've always done because we were in a situation we had never been in. And if we could have that same sense of urgency to support our businesses in non-pandemic times and view them as the type of partners that they are to create the type of quality of life that we want and need to generate the revenue that supports the services that our residents rely on, I think that Montgomery County is poised to be stronger than we've ever been. I think that the moment right now sets us up to build an economy that is better than we've ever had, and we just have to seize the moment.
Wow, Montgomery County, a culture of yes. I love it. And so you touched on a lot in that, just in your remarks. One of the things that stuck out to me was this whole, looking at the business community as partners. I know I recently spoke with Julie Beretti over at the U.S. Small Business Administration, and she was referring to the small business community as the small business administrators' clients. They are our clients. And so, because I think so often when we talk about narrative, the narrative inside of Montgomery County is that we're perceived as perhaps not being very business friendly. And so I think, to your point, it's a great time to capitalize on this culture of yes and really to shift and change the narrative. And so with that in mind, Nancy, and I know you often talk about shifting the narrative when it comes to the county's approach to economic development. Can you tell us why shifting the narrative can help us create this vibrant ecosystem that supports our vision for increased economic development in the county?
Absolutely. I am a firm believer that for many years, of course, we were focusing on this narrative of Montgomery County, as being a bedroom community, part of the Washington metropolitan area, bedroom community. And throughout the decades, Montgomery County has truly evolved, where now you have a lot more activity centers. Urbanization has really occurred. And I think that it is important for us to recognize who we are. We need to take a step back first and understand who we are. What are our assets, right? So we have diverse communities from all parts of the world. We have unmatched quality of life, right? We have so many, cultural, natural, recreational amenities, an excellent education system, which is training and preparing, the workforce of tomorrow, a highly entrepreneurial and talented workforce. We have businesses driving innovative discoveries in life-saving medicines, nonprofit organizations who are delivering incredible services to our communities, the region, and the world. And I believe that oftentimes we fail to focus on those assets when we talk about Montgomery County and its potential, and how we need to then drive our economic development strategy. Because if we engage in just the negative sort of deficit model type of conversation, that then I think informs a lot of the decisions, the policy, but also the perception. I also believe that we have suffered from complacency, that we are Montgomery County, therefore everything is great. And the truth of the matter is that even before the pandemic hit, and I refer back to this document, the Economic Development Platform lists all of those assets, because even then we understood that this transition in county government leadership was an opportunity to reframe a lot of things, to change that narrative, to take advantage of opportunities and position ourselves in the region as a major player, because in some ways we had become quite complacent. And so now, as we fast forward to 2021, more than ever, we have to continue to do this. And I think that, I don't know if you've noticed, Kelly, but in the past, the county council was not as active in owning a lot of these particular, issues around economic development, strategy, economic development, proposals, et cetera. That's a new thing. And I think it reflects the fact that, council members understand what's at stake.
Yeah.
And council members want to be able to also, in many ways, encourage in a very direct way the administration to seize the moment and seize opportunities, to understand that economic development should be county-wide, that we should not leave any area of the county untapped, and to leverage our assets. That is so critical. And I worry, and I've had this conversation with colleagues, that again, we have somehow taken, this sort of backseat, attitude, when in reality, other counties and, the region and other areas in the region are moving forward with very aggressive strategies. And so we, I think, are poised, and I think this council has shown that there is a commitment to be as aggressive as possible, that despite the pandemic, which of course has had an impact, despite that, the work continues and that energy continues.
Yeah, I love that. And so, yeah, that I think the pandemic did open. It was a great way, if we have to look at the bright side of, because the devastation has been tremendous. And so I certainly don't want to give the perception that, it was a good thing, but certainly if we have to look at the silver lining of it all, those are some of the things that we're seeing come out of it. And I do appreciate, and I have seen, and I think a lot of folks are noticing the council's intentionality around being very aggressive around just supporting the business community. So on behalf of the business community, I definitely thank you all for your commitment to economic development. And with that in mind, Andrew, and I know you mentioned the fact that you serve as the council, I guess, point of contact on the board for MCEDC. So I know you recently introduced a bill to move the responsibility for Montgomery County's economic development strategic plan from the executive branch to MCEDC. So can you tell us a little bit about that and why you think this is an important measure?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up. Thank you. And so the goal really is to consolidate and streamline our efforts. And Nancy talked about this quite a bit, about complacency. And some of it is you can't execute a plan if you don't have one. And Nancy really started this effort with her economic development platform and really has helped to guide our work. And this really will take it to the next step of institutionalizing that type of effort, where everybody can turn to one place and know what is Montgomery County's economic development plan, and ensure that there aren't silos like we've been working on for many years, where the executive branch and the council and the Economic Development Corporation and a new entity that gets created all are working and doing great work, but aren't necessarily working in a coordinated and collaborated fashion. This would help to address that. And so it also passes economic development over to the experts. We created an outside economic development corporation specifically because we realized that county government isn't an expert in this area, and we followed the lead of some county governments and other entities around the country to do this. And so I always say if you're in a game and you have a last shot, you want to hand the ball to your best player. And this is an example of that. County government is good at a lot of things, but we should be reaching out to the business community to help drive our economic development plan, and then we should be part of it to have overarching strategic goals, and then help to execute that. And that really is what this is about. It will incorporate the economic development platform that Nancy talked about earlier. It would help to consolidate a number of efforts that are already underway, some of which are enshrined into law and don't necessarily happen the way that we would want, and would bring everybody on the same team with one plan so that we can work together as Team Montgomery to grow our economy, to support our local businesses, to make sure that we are moving forward with one voice, one plan, and one effort. And I do think that will help address a lot of the issues that Nancy mentioned about what is the message that we are sending to the broader business community, to the region, to the country, and to the world of what Montgomery County is doing in terms of creating jobs, supporting businesses, and growing our local economy.
Excellent. So as we wrap up, because we only have a couple of minutes left, I'm going to ask both of you the same question. So can you share just one tip or one way that the business community can work with the council and the county executive to achieve the goals of the economic development platform? So what's your one tip, Nancy?
Stay engaged. Don't just come in, talk to us whenever there's something specific that affects you, but stay engaged throughout. Let's keep that line of communication going, because we learn from the business community and we're able to hopefully make changes and adapt. So please stay engaged. I think that is the most important piece on all kinds of policy areas.
Awesome. So stay engaged. Andrew.
I'll say ditto, engage, be proactive and not just reactive. That's really what this strategic plan is all about. It provides a formal, institutionalized opportunity for our businesses to be involved in the process, to have a say in what the county's economic development strategy and priorities are. And hopefully the business community takes us up on this, and we can work together, because they're our partners, we're their partners, and we all are part of creating the quality of life and the revenue that we need to provide services that make Montgomery County what it is.
Awesome. And you know what? Nobody asked me, but my tip is ask. Take advantage of this time while we're in this culture of yes. Reach out to your council member, build relationship, have conversations, stay engaged. And Nancy, Andrew, thank you. Thank you so much for your time and insights today. I am invigorated. I am excited about our plan to move forward. And I definitely want to thank everyone who's tuning in online, and behalf of the entire Small Business Network team, our partners, our sponsors, we look forward to seeing you again soon and serving you. So be well, everyone.